Yeah, we're going.
Okay, good morning everyone, and thank you very much for joining us on our now regular Wednesday funding update, and thank you for doing it a bit earlier today. That's really helpful. So I guess the big news really today has got to be BBLs, the bounce back loans, launched on Monday morning. Full credit to the government for pulling that off in a week. Amazing. What you seeing out there? What's the general update on BBLs?
I think considering that towards the back end of last week, some of the banks we were speaking to didn't really know what was going on themselves, the fact that on Monday, pretty much all the high street banks were up and running, offering the scheme, accepting applications, I think is absolutely amazing. No idea how they did that.
No.
And I think according to the FT, there were 110,000 applications made on Monday.
Wow.
So we're aware that a lot of people have actually had cash. Some of it's going to come through later in the week. But it seems to be working for a lot of people. I'm sure there'll be some applications that are falling between the cracks, where the bank's got other questions. And even if that's only a very small percentage, that's still going to affect, a number of businesses. There will no doubt be some people that are struggling with the scheme, but it's just a numbers issue.
And like in all previous schemes, I guess there are hard edges. Although this one's got quite fuzzy edges, to be fair. But there's always going to be someone who doesn't quite fit, isn't there? Unfortunately.
Yeah. All circumstances have changed just at the wrong time. I mean, I saw someone getting a bit animated because they changed the directors at company's house, but hadn't got to the point where they changed the signatories at the bank. So clearly, when the bank did the check, the two didn't marry, and so clearly there was some issues around. Well, we need some further information. Well, that clearly in a tense situation that can get that's harsh. But the reality is that's what the bank needs to do. In order to deliver the money, it's got to have the right bits in the right places. But the fundamentals. I mean, to be fair, I am genuinely astonished. We were in a position on Monday, only 7 days after Chancellor announced it, and to actually physically have people getting money on Monday night, Tuesday, even today, I'm genuinely amazed.
There were funds in people's accounts Monday afternoon.
I know.
It's astonishing, wasn't it? Just
ridiculous. If you said that to me a week ago, I'd have lost my house tomorrow.
Yeah,
I'd have bet the lot on.
I was sure it wasn't going to launch on Monday, but I think they worked all through the weekend, didn't they, to get it done? But credit to them. But it just shows what we can achieve if we put our minds to it.
Correct, and I think the important thing is just to remember all of that when people are getting a bit tense. And I appreciate people have got a lot of pressure on for all sorts of personal reasons, but the reality is to get where we are and to be in a situation where the issue is now just getting the money to your bank account.
Yeah.
Considering where we were a week ago, 10 days ago, where this didn't exist and we had CBILs or nothing, I think we just need to remember that and just take that moment before we start getting too animated about some of the things that we are.
Just bear in mind that small percentage, which is probably still a number of, quite a number of businesses that aren't just flying through on an automated basis. Those applications are going to be looked at by individuals. These are individuals that a week ago didn't know that they would be doing that job and probably didn't even exist. So it's probably a very small team of people that are picking up applications that they've never had to deal with before and doing their best with it.
Yeah.
So, I can see that in a number of cases there will be frustrations. I think you just got to bear with it and work through it.
I definitely agree. I mean, when you think, so there's 110 applications, that was just on Monday alone, £3.3 billion worth of funds applied for. Yeah. Staggering numbers, and that's a lot for the bank. Oh, Robin's here.
Oh, good.
Robin.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, Robin.
Guys.
Sorry, I forgot to tell you that the call time had changed. Apologies.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm just closing.
Just so you know, we are live. We're recording.
All right. So you may or may not have been able to hear the fact that I was on a conference.
Right, anyway. Let's get back to the call. Robin, we want to particularly ask about the insolvency side, but we'll come to that when we get to that, if that's okay.
Okay.
So some specific questions. Obviously, there's been a lot of activity on the Facebook group the last 2 days, as you can imagine. So I'm just picking up on some of the main issues and queries people have got. The big one is if someone's already applied for a CBIL and then maybe 2 or 3, 4 weeks into the process, not heard back yet, but their application is in. and they want less than 50,000, what should they do?
Well, the wording that I've seen is that if you're not using CBILs, you can apply for BBL.
Yes.
Now, I would just say that you're using CBILs if you've accepted an offer.
Right.
If you've not accepted an offer, but you've got an application in progress, you don't know for certain that offer's even going to be made. So I think as long as you haven't accepted an offer, then you're quite free to go down the BBL route, provided you're looking for less than £50,000.
Okay. And I think also you mentioned before that if you have got that application in, it's very likely that everyone's being pushed onto BBL if it's under 50,000 anyway.
Yes,
Yeah.
none of the main banks are accepting CBILS loans for less than 50 anyway now.
Okay, so they've actually changed the wording now, haven't they, to say that it's over 50k?
Yeah.
Yeah, the websites are now specifically saying CBILS is 50,001.
Okay.
So we're expecting, and we're expecting managers that are getting the smaller loan-sized applications to be directing their clients to BBL.
Okay.
So my personal view is go straight for BBL rather than waiting to be directed.
Okay.
Because the CBILS application is unlikely to process anyway.
Okay.
The reality is if you've accepted CBILS, I would say, and you've got the offer and you've signed it, you're not that far away from getting your money anyway.
Okay.
You've broken the two big hurdles, which is getting it agreed and getting the paperwork, because they're the two bottlenecks in the process. So I'd hang in there, get that over the line, and then in due course, once the furore has calmed down, switch to BBL, because clearly the benefits of being on BBL sub 50k outweigh CBILS.
They do indeed. That's brilliant. Okay.
But you've got time.
One of the things we haven't touched on is that didn't come out until Monday was the interest rate on BBL.
Yes.
Because at 2.5% fixed, that is a cracking interest rate. So
absolutely.
You put that together with the other features of BBL, the full year, 12 months without capital or interest payment. It's by far the better scheme to be on. So I can't imagine anybody with a qualifying CBIL that wouldn't want to convert over to BBL in due course.
And the banks would like them on BBL because they haven't got any risk as well, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's the right thing to do. It's just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
For all parties. And I think the point that we were talking about beforehand is that you have until the 4th of November to do so.
Yes.
So, clearly don't start that application to switch now, because clearly they're inundated with both BBL and CBILS. You've got time to do just that.
Okay, good point. Now, on that note, what I didn't realise until you told me just a few minutes ago is that you can still apply for BBLs right through to 4th of November, so there isn't any panic if you're not desperate for the cash.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. That's the thing. I think everyone is, like you mentioned earlier, the sort of flower and loo roll panic buying mentality of oh my god, apply for BBLs before it runs out. There isn't a rush. There isn't a panic unless you need the cash urgently.
Absolutely.
Just hang back a bit, let the backlog die down a bit.
Yeah.
If you can wait, then clearly the advantage is it'll iron out a few of the wrinkles that clearly those going in on Monday may well have come across.
Yeah.
Gives a chance for the banks to sort out all of those. Keeps the lines free for those that do really need it, and then you've got time to work through exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, and there's a big argument there. People who desperately need the cash can't get onto the website, so if you back off if you don't need it yet, let other people get through. Brilliant. Thank you. The delays in processing CBILs, people are still talking about 5 weeks since they applied and they've not heard anything yet.
Yeah, I think that's still quite likely to be the case. Apparently, the stats are few and far between, but as of Thursday last week, I think 52,807 applications, but there were still 28,000 that hadn't been approved. But we don't know how many of those have been declined and how many are still in the process.
Okay.
But I think you'd suggest there's tens of thousands that are still in the process. And even the ones that are approved, there's a lot of paperwork to do and checks before that turns out into cash as well.
Okay, so you just need to be patient on that then.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that really is all we can really say. Talking to local bank managers, You know, the initial headache of getting it through and the bottleneck of credit and sanction.
Mm-hmm.
The second hurdle is just paperwork processing because of the volume.
Yeah.
Just moving that paperwork through in a structured way just takes time, and you know, they're queued up waiting to go through it. And the managers understand that. You know, they're getting clients ringing saying, "Where's my paperwork?"
Yeah.
And you know, they look over their shoulders and just see colleagues battling with a mountain.
I guess the more you keep ringing and checking, the more people are answering the phone and actually getting on with processing applications.
Just slows
Terrible to
everything
say,
down.
but yeah, it is. You know, if there ever was a time, if you've had the sanction and you know it's sanctioned, I think that's the huge step. That's the positive, and then you've just got to sit on your hands as long as you can.
Yeah, and I guess if it's under 50 and you've not had it approved yet, then go for a BBL.
Yeah.
Just get that in. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Now, we talked before about the surprising news about the sole trader protection. So we talked, when BBLs were being talked about last week, fine if you're a limited company, but if you're a sole trader, where does the government guarantee kick in? Which is Robin really wanted to ask you. Do you know anything specifically about the BBL setup and to what extent they'll pursue a sole trader or unlimited partnership?
Perhaps just help if I said that on the BBL website, so British Business Bank website, regarding BBLs, it says that lenders will not be permitted to take recovery action over a borrower's personal assets, such as their main home or personal vehicle. So we think that's aimed particularly at partners and sole traders who would otherwise have unlimited liability. But we're thinking then, to what extent can the debt be pursued from a personal individual sole trader? Because you can't make somebody selectively bankrupt, can you?
No, you can't. And the short answer to Serena's question is there isn't a lot of guidance on this, and in fact, what will probably have to happen is the cycle will have to the debt cycle will have to fulfill its course, and we'll have to see how it's played. But educated speculation, I would say this would probably mean not taking the borrower to the point of bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. So in terms of enforcing a debt obligation, you've got the process of demand. You've got the ability to sue on the debt and get a judgment, a county court judgment, and you've got the ability to execute against assets. So in other words, getting a high court enforcement officer to go in and lift business assets as opposed to personal assets, and sell those to satisfy the debt. What's unlikely, I think, especially given what David's just said, what's unlikely is that you would then have the ability to take the next step, which would normally be service of a statutory demand and then issuing a bankruptcy petition to seek the bankruptcy of the individual. The other question is, of course, what's the difference between those self-employed and sole traders who only have the tools of their trade, which you cannot take, a high court enforcement officer cannot, or a bailiff cannot take those assets. You can't take the tools of trade. So normally they would go in and get, the TV and a car and things like that. So there will be questions to answer there. We'll have to see how it comes out in the debt cycle. I think part of the decision making under bounce back loans will have been by the Treasury will have been that from an actuarial point of view, there will be a certain number that will default, and that will be a low number, and that's possibly the price worth paying of a guarantee. But there is definitely a discrepancy between the way a limited company would be treated and a sole trader or an individual.
I think the key message here is, because I think this 100% guarantee has confused quite a lot of people, and we've seen people on the Facebook group particularly thinking it meant that they were guaranteed over, I'm not quite sure what, but they didn't realise that the guarantee was the government to the bank. Yeah. And then actually they are still fully liable for this debt. It just means they won't be pursued to the end goal of bankruptcy if it's personal debt. Yeah. But your business could still be put down for it, couldn't it? If your business can't pay this debt, your business could still. So you need to bear in mind, if you're taking this out, there is It's not that easy a path. You have still got to pay it back, and you will still be pursued rigorously.
Yeah,
but it does
absolutely.
Whether you're limited company or personal.
Yeah,
and
the question of like borrow it and you haven't got to pay it back, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is definitely not a grant. It is definitely a debt obligation. And the other point to make there is, I mentioned in the ordinary course, suing the business, or this applies to unlimited partnerships as well. Suing the sole trader, the self-employed, or the partnership could result in a county court judgment. Well, that's going to impact on the credit rating of the individual, as well as the credit rating of creditworthiness of the business.
Yeah.
So these are still, significant steps that can be taken. And in fact, I would expect, I mean, David and Nick can speak to this, but I would expect before the government stepped in and made good on its guarantee, it would expect to see that the bank had taken the pursuit of the debt to a certain point. And an obvious point would, to my mind, would be a county court judgment and or if it's higher than £10,000, a high court judgment, and an attempt to execute against assets.
Yeah.
And if the bank then says, look, this is as far as we've got, the next step is bankruptcy or to wind the partnership up, then at that point, the government would probably say, yeah, okay, you've done as much as you can.
Yeah.
Now we'll step in on the loan. But by then, a lot of damage will have been done to the business and the individual.
Yeah. That's really clear, Robin. Thank you for that, because we weren't quite sure what it would all mean. But I think I'm not sure everyone's fully got that they're going to be pursued for this, and this isn't going to be some kind of easy gain.
It's not a grant.
Definitely a guarantee to the lender. It's not any sort of protection to the borrower at all.
Definitely some confusion around that.
Yeah,
so just so we can move on then, conscious of time. New customers, so people who their current bank doesn't offer BBL. How do they go applying to one that does if they're not banking with them?
I suppose they're going to have to, if they're two things really. One is if they've got a personal account and not a business account, and they actually use their personal account for the business, then there are a couple of banks that are saying, okay, well, we understand this does happen from time to time. They do need to open a new account to service the debt, a business account to service the loan, but they will still entertain applications, and some of them are making it relatively easy to open that new account. If you're with a bank that doesn't offer BBL, then yes, there are some of the banks that are saying, yeah, you can approach us, but it'll be a while before we get to you.
Yeah.
And some of them are a little bit more upfront about, yes, we can help you. It's still not going to be the first thing that they do, but they are open to those new accounts. And
is everyone? So it was like HSBC and NatWest, I'd heard, were open to new accounts. Have I got that right?
Yeah, they're the ones that so far we know most about.
Okay.
And it actually go onto the NatWest website. I had a wander around their website. There's 3 buttons to press when you get to BBL application. Are you a personal customer? Are you an existing business customer? Or are you a non-customer? And if you press whichever button applies, you get taken down a different route, which should help you.
Okay, that's good.
Sorry, Serena. Something that came up yesterday with a number of my clients. I've got clients who bank with Metro, and I've got clients who bank with Starling. And in both cases, they were saying they wanted to be able to access the bounce back loan, but were unable to because neither of those banks is accredited. But I had a look on both banks' websites, and in fact, a client with Starling had an email for having filled in an expression of interest for a bounce back loan. Starling emailed them back saying, "Thanks, registered your interest. We are applying. We're in the process of applying for accreditation with a British Business Bank, and as soon as we've got it, we will start processing." The applications, or rather, we'll open up for applications. And in the background,
Starling and Funding Circle are both in the process and expect to be doing bounce back loans, maybe even next week or the week after.
Yeah, and so in that case, what you said about being able to apply for bounce back loans up to November, and there being less of a panic in terms of accessing the opportunity for the funding. A little bit of patience, and you should be able to get it out of the likes of Metro, Starling, Funding Circle, as an existing customer already.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. And I would say it is worth waiting rather than necessarily jumping straight into starting the process with HSBC just to see what those other alternatives are. Because if we acknowledge that the BBL scheme is fixed by British Business Bank and the government to say it is 2.5% fixed, it is interest, all of that is they are set in stone. All the other providers will be offering the same, so it's worth waiting and looking at the alternatives rather than just having to go through a process of trying to open a bank account.
Yeah, because transferring your bank account, it's still not an easy process to go from
just opening a bank account. Even just opening a bank account is going to be a challenge for lenders at this time.
Interestingly, the Starling email said if you don't yet have a Starling business bank account, you can apply for one and still be eligible.
Okay.
To apply once we are accredited, which I thought showed exactly that they weren't willing to lose customers to the mainstream banks out of a misapprehension that only the mainstream banks would be able to provide the bounce back loan funding. Yeah.
I think also we heard this morning that 10 more banks have been approved onto CBILs, haven't they? Do you think they might then therefore naturally progress to BBLs?
Some of them are quite niche-y operators in the alternative finance market. Assets Capital, mostly property lenders. Atom Bank, sort of a smaller challenger bank. Ebury, largely based around trade finance. Fleximize, they're a sort of a lender usually at the higher risk and higher priced end of the market, so that I expect would be quite expensive. Other lenders, Investec, Social Investment Business, Tower Leasing, Ultimate Finance, White Oak, probably lenders that most people won't be aware of.
Yeah, sure.
So they're out there and they will all help, but I think it's the big names and the main clearing banks that are going to cover the vast majority of situations.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say most of those that have joined today have joined for CBILS purposes, not for BBL purposes, and I think a number of them would struggle to meet BBL cost of finance. That's a harsh reality of it. You know, their funding lines don't really allow them in at 2.5% fixed. That will be the bigger challenge for those smaller lenders than anything else.
And most of them aren't geared to volume applications.
No, of course.
Not the nature of their business.
Okay. And the other thing we talked about was the fact that, again, on the group, had a lot of people saying that they made their applications on Monday and they haven't heard anything from the bank yet. Now, I know that Nick, you were saying that HSBC were chatting with you that they didn't expect to be paying out until at least Thursday.
Well, I think most of us are still amazed, you know, come back to the original point that we had money moving even not yesterday and Monday.
Yeah.
So I think the reality of the banking process is such that it is just, unfortunately, a process, and the volumes will have restricted them being able to move it. You know, clearly, you know, Santander, Lloyds and Barclays have got the straightforward ones through quickly, but if there's any kind of kink in the system, it's going to just slow it down a bit. And I think HSBC, to be fair, were slightly later to the party than the others. It looks as though they were literally only getting theirs set up on Monday, whereas the others seem to have been ready at the weekend. And, you know, I saw emails from Lloyds to their customers over the weekend saying we're ready, whereas I got the impression, and that's no disrespect to HSBC, it's just fact.
It's a huge
So as a consequence, I just think they're a little behind the 8 ball in that regard.
And to remember, like 2 or 3 days to get your money is still blooming fast, isn't it?
Ridiculous.
Still ridiculous. You need to just calm down a bit and just stop the bitching if you've not got your money yet.
If you've got your loan agreed and you know it's coming, you know, just be comforted by the fact that you've got to that point, and you know you can enjoy the weekend accordingly rather than thinking. Yeah, I'm still waiting to hear from CBILS.
And if you've got creditors screaming at you, all you can do is saying, I'm waiting on the loan to come through. I can't imagine there's anyone who's going to put anyone out of business right now, excuse me, unless you're needing it to buy food, then if you know the money's going to be coming, isn't it?
Yes.
Very shortly. You can be sure of that. And one thing I just say on the Barclays front, Barclays had a lot of bad press in the last few days about their website being very difficult to get through to. Now we spent nearly 2 days now just trying to get through, constantly pressing the button. And we finally got through to another screen that said, you've got more than one signatory on your account, so we can't process it. We'll try and get this fixed by Thursday. And also one saying you haven't finished setting up all of your details on the online system. So we hadn't got our home phone number on, we hadn't got our mobile number on, and that was kicking it out as well. So go in and just double check you've got all your details up to date on the system, because that might be part of why you get in trouble. But saying apparently having more than one signatory is a challenge. So we'll
doing things online. One of the challenges where a business has more than one signatory. And there was a period of time when Starling Bank were only able to open accounts for sole traders and businesses where there was only one director.
Right.
And so it is the next stage of making the portal work, basically.
It depends how their systems are set up, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to say or that we need to know?
I think we've probably covered everything for this week.
Yeah, that's everything on our list that we chatted through. Brilliant. So another action-packed week on the funding front then.
Yeah, nothing to talk about really, Serena.
Nothing to talk about.
No, it's all been fairly quiet.
Nothing at all.
Nothing going on. Nothing to see here.
Thank goodness it's a bank holiday weekend. It's a short week, so we,
I know, but when you let your guard down, you think, oh, okay, I can switch off now. It's Friday. Nothing happened in the Friday briefing, and then bam, Saturday morning there's an announcement.
Yeah.
About the grant funding for people in shared business premises.
Absolutely.
You can't let your guard down for a second because announcements can come any time.
It's very fluid still. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to keep that Twitter on high alert. Well, thank you as always for your time and your effort, and I really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to next week's update. Right. Thanks very much then. Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers now. Bye.